Okay, made a few advances on this thing a little bit. I ended up moving the rough cut back a little bit. I ended up having to pull everything loose again and reevaluated some things, made a few extra cuts. Was able to pull this back a little bit. I think I pulled it up like a hair, like not even really a noticeable amount, but just the amount of doing a little bit of filing to make things fit a little better. Pulled it up just a tiny bit. Moved this back a little bit more. I was going to do this just like a permanent slam fire thing, but I was able to do a bit of cutting and actually have a trigger that works in theory. It just needs adjusted and kind of fine-tuned and stuff, but it does work. Also, I went ahead, did some work on the Jackal a while back, and I had the cheek rest thing taken out, and I just happened to have it laying around when I was working on this, and I feel it's a much better fit for the blaster than on the Jackal. The Jackal, I tended to add a little bit more bulk on the back that I really didn't want to have. I wanted it to be a little sharper and more streamlined. This seems to wear it a lot better. It doesn't really look as good on the camera, but in like holding it in hand, the proportions and stuff are a lot better. And it will function better as an actual jam door, since this will be obviously the functional magwell. I can't remember if I had a flat topped or not last time. It's kind of another choice, kind of like when I cut the top off the Jackal. Was it the Jackal? It was something. I cut the top off of something, and but I wanted to pull that line down a little ways, and like I've said before, I wanted to disguise the Raven a little bit so it didn't look quite so like a Raven. You know, adding the cheek rest, adding the stock extension, just kind of throws off the lines a little bit. So I did chop the top off, and then I thought, you know, with the space I have left, there ought to be something cool you can do. And so I have the Modulus red dot sight is going to be integrated into the blaster itself, and this will be, of course, molded in, and it'll become part of the shell. I'll just probably pick this body line here and just fill that in to match, and so it'll be just kind of a natural extension of the shell. And of course, it still has the battery tray, and so I'll just leave a little bit of room and down here to get to the batteries and stuff like that. But it tends to work out pretty well having this flat spot here that kind of rolls into the rest of the rails there. I'd kind of considered maybe trimming off the rail here and adding a solid piece of Picatinny or a longer rail off of something just to tie the two shells together better. I haven't really decided quite yet. I think I'll wait until more of the actual integrating happens. I do... One thing that is not really a frustration, but just kind of a thing. I have to have the side plates a separate piece in order to fully disassemble the whole long strike barrel portion of things, because you have to split the shell in half and then access the screws from the backside. And I still wanted to be able to thoroughly paint everything without having gaps and overspray problems and stuff like that. So I won't be able to have this line here be solid, but I think what I'm going to have to do is favor one side or the other, and basically instead of having the two pieces come together and meeting like that, I think I'm going to probably run the piece of tape over the Raven part and then run DevCon on the joint itself, so that you get kind of an angled, kind of a back cut affair where the Raven would come down here, and instead of the long strike sitting here, it would kind of overflow this way a little bit and have a little bit of a smoother line. That's a theory, so we'll kind of wait and see how that goes. I extended this line because the rails were exposed more or less on the long strike, between the long strike and the rough cut, and it just kind of looked ugly and clunky. And so, for one thing, I cut off at an angle this external panel, because there again I wanted to disguise the lines a little bit. The front of the long strike barrel was too boxy for me, and it looked too much like long strike barrel, rough cut, Raven, and all that. So I put an angle cut here, which exposed the rest of the barrel, made it a little leaner and more aggressive looking, but then added a filler panel below that covers up the rails and everything, and will kind of actually matches up. You have this line here, and it's flat, and then you have it angled down a little bit, but the bottom line was much shorter than the top, so now it's almost even. So I think that balances out the barrel a little bit better. It's kind of hard to tell because it's, of course, clear. Once I put a base coat or a guide coat of some kind on there, we'll be able to tell for sure how well that looks. Filled this line in the rest of the way down here, so these kind of blend together a little bit. A little more work to do there. Still a lot of work to do back in here because I just barely got the whole relationship of the shells established. So that'll be probably a long road making that look like something. So yeah, not quite sure. I think I might pull this in all the way up into here, and then maybe bring this here down to an angle. I'm not really quite sure. Like I said, it's gonna be a long road. I have some other priorities to work with, and I just kind of have to do what I can down at this part when I get to that portion. So that's kind of how the Yellow Jacket's shaping up. I don't think I mentioned it before, but the Yellow Jacket name stems from my original plan with the project was to build a Stinger Raven, kind of a mild custom, but do it in a Stinger theme, because I realized that Stinger Ravens are cool, but if I had one, I wouldn't know what I would do with it, because I don't really do a whole lot of just regular Raven builds. But I like the look, and so I'm going to build basically a Stinger Raven with other cool stuff going on, have the whole matching Stinger theme, because Hornet and Wasp and stuff like that, other stinging insect-related names were already taken. I went with Yellow Jacket because it kind of has that same vibe to it, and still sounds mildly aggressive and stuff like that. So that's kind of how things are progressing there, and I'll catch you guys up later.